I hope. That's my aim and my ambition. Your stuff is right there, mate. No, it's totally fine, dude. So this is a workshop session. And I don't know if I remember what I titled it. What did I title it, guys? He shines in all that's fair. Did I do that? Yeah. Okay, cool. Sweet. All right. Enjoying God by enjoying creation. So my name's Mark. If you don't know me, where in the world have you been? It'd be really weird. Since it's a workshop session, I want it to be pretty chill. So I'm going to try to keep my remarks brief, which will be very difficult because this is a subject that I'm really, really interested in. And I'll try to give some time where we can just kind of have some Q&A. You can ask me a lot of things. You can ask me anything about this subject or anything really about anything. I don't really care. I'll try to give you a fair answer unless it's an inappropriate question, in which case I'll chastise you. The thing I do want to address first, though, is yes, I do have a birthmark on my right leg. You may have noticed that because I'm wearing shorts. If you can't see it, I'll stand up here and I'll flex my calf because I work out. Thank you. That led to me being nicknamed 2% in high school. To compute that. Also because I have abnormal leaping ability. That's actually true. I still have my high school long jump record, and as an 8th grader, I used to be able to stand flat-footed and jump and dunk a basketball. and I was this tall. So I know that you don't think that's true, but that actually is 100% true. And I also, with that birthmark, I managed to convince Stephanie Navrakel in my graduating class that my brothers who were adopted, who are African American, were actually, my parents were African American as well, and I was a genetic anomaly, and that this was the only thing that had made it, and she totally bought it until she met my parents at my high school graduation, and she's so angry. Oh, man. Yeah. I had some good fun with Stephanie. She was a funny person. Okay, so here's what we're going to talk about. I want to talk to you about enjoying God by enjoying creation, because we live in a world that is absolutely beautiful and yet broken. And so when you're looking at the world around, you have to ask the question. I hear people say things like this often, like, God, I don't want to get lost in just enjoying the stuff of this world because, God, I just want to delight in you, right? Which would be kind of like, in actuality, going to a dad who gives a Christmas present on Christmas, and he hands the Christmas present to you and tells you, go play with it, and you go, Daddy, I don't want that present, I just want you. Which would be super awkward for the Christmas celebration because your dad gave you the gift and told you to go play with it, and you're like, no, I don't want that. And you're like, well, thank you for the hugs, but I kind of want you to play with the present. And I want to actually put that image in your mind as we start out, because I think a lot of Christians have this idea that is not from Christianity, but it's a holdover from Platonic dualism that says that the created world is evil and God is good. So in order to enjoy the God that is good, we need to do something that is spiritual, and we need to neglect that which is physical. And I want to see if I can take on those ideas from the technical terms, if you want a neat philosophy lecture, or Platonic dualism and proto-Gnosticism that are incipient and working their way inside of Christian culture. And so I want to see what we can do to tackle that. So, all of you, oh my goodness, I just wanted to talk about creation. Here's where I first started to run into this, was growing up in my church. We sang different hymns. I grew up in one of those churches, hymns, organs, all that sort of stuff. And thank you. And one of the hymns we sang went like this. Let's see if you guys ever heard this. This world is not my home, I'm just a passing through. I've got a place laid up in heaven far beyond the starry blue. The angels beckon me from heaven's peaceful shore, and I can't be at home in this world anymore. Yeehaw! And then we, that sort of business, okay? Yeah, or you could have had it go, let's see, what is the other one? Some glad morning when this life is o'er, I'll fly away to a home on God's celestial shore. I'll fly away. So here was the notion in that. I am so looking forward to the day when I can get out of this place and go to heaven to get away from this mess and go there. which gave me the notion that the basic end goal of my time on earth was to get out of this junk hole so that I could go up to heaven. I could kind of become an angel with a harp floating on clouds, right? And in an endless worship service. But here's the thing, as much as corporate worship is like my jam, that didn't really set right with me because I happened to like the world I was in. I seemed to be fairly well suited to it, right? Like I had eyes and I had taste buds and I had all this amazing stuff and I couldn't get why we kept singing, God, why don't you set this place on fire so we can get away? It just didn't settle and I didn't know what to do with it. So I had that idea, this stuff, and then I kept hearing things like this, right? Don't be a worldly person, right? Don't just love the things of the world, the lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh. And it made it seem like this, like when I played a video game or when I went on a walk in a park and I saw the beauty of the trees and I just was caught up in it, I'm like, oh shoot, I'm being worldly. I am loving worldly things. I need to go pray right now so I can get back to being spiritual. And I operated with those two competing concepts. But then on the other side, there's another hymn. I'm going to see if I can remember the words. This one will be a little harder because we sang it so rarely. It's a hymn called This Is My Father's World, right? This is my Father's world. He shines in all that's fair. What is it? I think it's like the birds, the trees, dust, the breeze. He speaks to me everywhere. This is my Father's world. Okay, so this is my Father's world. So which is it? This world is not my home, or my Father made this world and everything echoes His glory and His goodness. Okay, what was it? Okay. That's the tension I want you to start with, which is the idea here is, I want to suggest to you, this is our Father's world, and He shines in everything that's fair and beautiful and glorious. And I want to try to show you where that roots from biblically, out of the idea of creation and the doctrine of the resurrection. And then once we've kind of set those two key foundation stone pillars, I want to unpack why it is, though, that we get into some danger zones when we talk about subjects like this. Because there's a way to love the world too much. We call that idolatry, and I want to talk to you about the danger zone there. But then I want to kind of give you a pathway forward on how to enjoy God by enjoying creation. And I'm going to make a very subtle argument that I'm going to try not to slip into technical philosophical terminology, but this is the argument I'm going to make. I'm going to make an argument that in the act of enjoying the creation, we are honoring God. So that the action of enjoyment should not be set apart like I should enjoy creation and then go thank God for it. But that I am in the action of enjoyment doing that which gives God honor and glory. We'll get there why that distinction matters, okay? So let's open up a Bible. If you got a Bible, I want to go to Genesis, okay? And I'm going to try to set the table to say, why is it that we should look at this world and say it's a broken place, but it's a beautiful place, right? I want to start at Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. In Hebrew, that's called a merism. They don't have a word for everything in the known universe, and so the word heavens and earth means everything, okay? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. It says, now the earth was formless and empty. It was tohu vavohu. The darkness covered the surface of the watery depths, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the waters. This is like setting the stage for this grand activity. And then we say, then God said, let there be light. And there was light. And God saw that the light was good. Notice that word, good, okay? What we're going to do together is I'm going to read this very, very, very quickly. And every time we hear the word good, together we're going to make a sound. It's going to sound like this, ding, okay? Let's do it together, ding. So let's try it. Then God said, let there be light. And there was light. God saw that the light was good. Ding. Okay, just notice how many times we're going to ding. We're going to be a bunch of dinglings here. Here we go. God saw that the light was good. And God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day. He called the darkness night. Evening came and then morning the first day. Now, I'm going to just jump down. I'm going to show you like a few different verses, okay? So jump down to verse 12. Genesis 1:12. The earth produced vegetation, seed-bearing plants according to their kinds, and trees bearing fruit with seed in it according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. Evening came and then morning the third day. Jump over to verse 18. God places the lights in the sky to provide light on the earth, to dominate the day and the night, and to separate light from darkness. And God saw that it was good. Evening came and then morning the fourth day. Okay, jump down. I want to show you verse 25. God made the wildlife of the earth according to their kinds, the livestock according to their kinds, creatures that crawl on the ground according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. Very well done, guys. We're getting this down. And I want you to go now, turn the page to, I have to turn the page, Genesis 1:31. God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. Well done, guys. Evening came and then morning the sixth day. So the heavens and the earth and everything in them was completed. By the seventh day, God completed his work that he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work that he'd done. And God blessed the seventh day, declared it holy, for on it he rested from his work of creation. Now so what's the repeated thing? Everything God sees that he made is good. Some of you got, we don't have to ding anymore when I say the word good, okay? But everything God made was good. Now I want you to see what he does with this good world in verse 26. Go back to Genesis 1:26. Then God said, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. They will rule the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, the livestock, all the earth, and the creatures that crawl on the earth. So God created man in his own image. He created him in the image of God. He created them, male and female. God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth and subdue it. Rule the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, and every creature that crawls on the ground. God also said, look, and I just want you to see the next couple words. Just pay attention. I'll watch. Look, I have given you. I have handed this created, beautiful, good thing to you. It's gift language. I have given you every seed-bearing plant on the surface of the entire earth, every tree whose fruit contains seed. This food will be for you. It's given for you and for the livestock to feed everything. Okay, here's my point. What God is doing in the created world, the creation account has an escalation to it. And the high point of the creation account is the creation of man and woman. God makes them in his own image. And then human beings dwelling in this place God has made for them, it's as if what he's doing is, have you ever seen fish aquariums? Have you ever seen a fish aquarium with only a fish in it? You know, it's just so boring. It's just fish, and you're like, oh, that's very sad. Right? But then think of like the aquariums. Have you ever been to like the Omaha Zoo? The kids, oh my goodness. Yeah, thank you for that. My children love you and your zoo. And I mean, just they delight in it. And my favorite, honestly, is the aquariums inside of that. What's the thing called? The shark tunnel, all that. Because it's not just fish. It looks like you're in the middle of it. There's things that are stuff and big. And you see, that's descriptive language. That's why they pay me to do that, because of the adjectives, the things that are stuff and big in the fish homes called aquariums. And it's just amazing. Why? Because you're preparing this beautiful place to put a fish in it, because the fish, once it gets there, will go, oh, I'm home. God prepares everything in all of creation, and he puts man and woman in it, and they look and they go, oh, I'm home. And he gives it to them as a gift, right? This is like, my grandma is a great cook. She prepares these amazing meals, and she prepares these incredible feasts on Thanksgiving Day, right? And so she does all this work and all this, and the smells and everything, and when you walk in the room, you go, oh, this is what I was meant to do. I'm going to put myself in a coma eating this right now. because everything about it just is inviting you in to enjoy it because it just delights you because you were made for it. So, that's what God's doing with creation. He's building the perfect place for people. So here's the point I'm making. Number one, creation is a gift. Number two, you were built by God to enjoy it. Which is the reason why when I heard about floating on clouds and playing harps and being in an endless worship service, I was repulsed because I was made to enjoy the world I'm in. That makes sense? I'm not made to live as a disembodied spirit someplace floating on a cloud. I'm made to be stuff. I'm creation. And what does God do with his creation? He sets a pattern. He says he worked 6 days, then he rested from his labor. You know what the Sabbath is, right? Everybody thinks of Sabbath as rest. Think of it this way. The idea of Sabbath is this. You labor for 6 days working in and among and on the created stuff out of the ground, and you're tilling up food. And on the seventh day, you know what that is? Celebration. It's feasting on all that you've worked to produce. So the Sabbath is not about inactivity. Don't read the word rest as inactivity. Sabbath is kicking your feet back and looking out over the fruit of your labors and going, this is awesome. So Sabbath is supposed to be the time when we have the best food and the best drink and the best friends, and we laugh and we delight because we worked our ears off for 6 days and now we need to celebrate. So I want to take Sabbath away from the idea. Most college students hear Sabbath, they go, yeah, I take a nap every once in a while. No, that's not what we're talking about. What I'm talking about is enjoyment. Like, yeah. So this whole place here, this is a Sabbath. You're away from the world. You're just supposed to enjoy yourself. Supposed to have a great time. Go hammock, and I don't know why that would be a great time, by the way. But whatever. You do the things that you do. I do the things that I do, and we do what we do, and we're good. So here's point one. This is very important. God made creation as a gift to give to people that he loves, and he is honored as we do what we do with any gift. We enjoy it. I do not give my son a present on Christmas, have him look at that, and like, imagine my son who loves Legos, right? I buy him that $12,000 Lego set, and I wrap that baby up, and I put it under the Christmas tree, and I slide it out, and Owen opens it up, and he goes, that's awesome, but all I want is you, Daddy. As much as he might try to honor me, I would be better honored if he took what I gave him and did what it was meant to do. Let's build this thing with 15 bajillion pieces. Let's do this, man. How do you honor God if he gave you creation as a gift? You enjoy it. How do you honor your dad if he says, go out to the backyard and play in the sandbox? And you go, no, Dad, I just want to sit here with you and stare at you for a while. Everybody be like, that's weird. But we do that with God all the time. Think about our prayers. God, all I want is you. Okay, that can be true, right? But if all I want is you, but nothing about the world around me, I have a messed up view about the way God works and the way he made me to live. Okay? Another way to put it is that God is only enjoyed through mediated means. Okay, so this is more technical. So I'm going to go technical, and if some of you are really into this, I'll explain it later. No, I'm still kind of underneath one. Because I want to get this a little fuller. Underneath point one, God is only enjoyed through created things. Here's what I mean. You do not have some direct line beatific vision with God where you enjoy him without enjoying something he created or using something he created. Here's what I mean. How does God communicate to us? Through Scripture. That is written down words inside of creation. Scripture is creation. It's stuff, right? It's not just some esoteric spiritual thing. How do I praise God? Well, with words and with sounds, that's a created concept, right? You are a created being, and you cannot relate to God through some sort of mystical channel that is outside of creation. Do you follow? You only relate to him through created means. Okay, there's important philosophical points to that, but we won't get into that, okay? So, here you go. That means, here's my summary of point one. My summary of point one is this. We were created by God to enjoy the creation that God made. And in enjoying the creation that God made, we honor the Creator who gave it. Now, this is point two now. There are three key, I'm going to call them qualifiers, that I need to put on what I just said so that you have a well-rounded vision for living life in the world as it is now. Okay, here's the first qualifier. There is a great danger to love the creation instead of the Creator. We call that idolatry. Okay, so flip over to Romans chapter 1. I want to show you this. Because Romans 1, Paul is reflecting on, I think, Genesis 1. And you'll see the echoes of the language. Romans chapter 1, and we're going to go verse 18 through verse 25. It says this, God's wrath is revealed from heaven against all godlessness and unrighteousness of people who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. Since what can be known about God is evident among them because God has shown it to them. For his invisible attributes, that is his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly seen since the creation of the world. Being understood through, notice that? Being understood through what has been made. That's my point about God only uses the means of created things, okay? You'd see his invisible attributes, his power, through the substance. You don't just see the invisible attribute. You have to have some mediated thing, okay? This is the key logic here. Watch what happens. For verse 21, for though they knew God, they did not glorify him or show him gratitude. You're supposed to honor him. What did they do instead? Instead, their thinking became nonsense. Their senseless minds were darkened. Claiming to be wise, they became fools. They exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images, stuff in the creation resembling mortal man, birds, four-footed animals, and reptiles. Therefore, God delivered them over to the cravings of their hearts to sexual impurity so that their bodies were degraded among themselves. They exchanged the truth of God for a lie and worshiped and served something created instead of the Creator who is to be praised forever. Amen. That phrase, it is entirely possible because God's gifts are so good to lose the giver because the gift is so powerful. Back to the Christmas tree analogy. For me to give my son that Lego thing and then for him not to communicate with me for weeks because he's lost himself in the world that is Legos does not honor me. Because he's lost himself in the gift such that he has forgotten the giver. That is what the Bible calls idolatry. It is taking something in creation and elevating it to a place of value where I have lost the view that this thing in creation is a gift from a creator, but I am worshiping the creation, the substance, instead of the giver. That's a danger. It's a danger. It's especially a danger in the best gifts that God gives, right? So think of our culture. There was a reference here, God delivering them over to sexual impurity. Why is it that sexual impurity comes up so fast in this context? I think it's because the power of the pleasure of the gift of sexual expression is so potent that it is particularly easy to grasp onto it idolatrously. It is particularly easily to use that gift that God gave in an inappropriate way that dishonors the Creator who gave it instead of honors the Creator, right? So what we want to do in a Christian viewpoint is not then look and say, all sex is naughty. We need to not do that. No sex. We will really regret that decision, okay? But what we want to say is sex is good. Absolutely. It's pure and holy to have sex within the boundaries of the way the Creator gave us that gift to be enjoyed, right? So yeah, absolutely enjoy it. But there's a difference between an enjoyment and abuse. And abusing the gift is when we forget the giver and we obsess about the gift. Okay? That's called idolatry. That's one qualifier. Second qualifier is this. There is a big problem because while the world was created beautiful, the world now is broken and the creation itself is subjected to a curse. Right? So we read Genesis 1, but when we get to Genesis 3, Adam's sin in the garden means that everything is broken. And when you read about the sin of Adam, I want you to kind of flip back there because I want you to see how this works. Genesis 3. There's something really interesting here. Genesis 3, Adam sins, and God goes and he says there's going to be consequence to sin, Adam. And I want you to look at verse 17. He said to Adam, Genesis 3:17, because you listened to your wife's voice and ate from the tree about which I commanded you, do not eat from it. Notice the very next words. The ground is cursed because of you. Do you see that? That's the stuff God made. So if you went back 2 chapters, that word ground, the eretz, the land, okay? That is the stuff that God is looking at and saying, this is good. And now what he's saying is, Adam, the stuff that I made good because of you, cursed. So that the curse of sin extends all the way into the stuff of creation. So that now, when we look at the beauty of the sunset, even the most beautiful beauties on earth have elements of the distorted sin curse in them. So, if we're to look at the world rightly, we not only will see that our Father shines in all that's fair, we will also see that we live in a world where not all is fair and beautiful, where there's real brokenness and there's real suffering. And so if we become creation-obsessed cultural snobs who sit around having wonderful wine tasting clubs to appreciate the beauty of creation, but do nothing to counteract the brokenness that we see in the world around us, we're missing something. Do you follow? So I want to set you free to enjoy the world with absolutely no regret, but I also want to step back and say, this is a real broken place still. It's beautiful and broken. So we need to be able to go into the beauty and say, God, thank you for that. And we need to be able to go into the brokenness and say, oh God, would you come back in Jesus and make everything right again? Make it again tov, make it beautiful. Okay. Third qualifier. There is a limitation to what we see in the beauty of the created world. I want you to flip to Psalm 19. Psalm 19 says this, the heavens declare the glory of God. The sky proclaims the work of his hands. Day after day they pour out speech. Night after night they communicate knowledge. I want you to see verse 3. I think the Holman translates this better than any other English translation. It's very good here. There is no speech. There are no words. Their voice is not heard. Day after day they pour forth speech. The created world is saying something, but it is not saying substantive idea communication. It's not sentences. It's not like if you look up at the stars and you had like the right telescope and it was one of those that heard stuff and saw stuff, you'd hear beep, 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 beep. It'd be like Morse code and it'd be saying, God is awesome and Jesus is really cool, God is awesome. You know, that doesn't happen, okay? So we've all seen the really cool things with like laminin when you look into things and it looks like a cross, you know. We all know that's mumbo jumbo, right? Okay? Like neat that there's a cross shape, but it's just a shape. That's okay, good, it's great, all right? I could, if I focus my telescope on that wall there, I could find a cross in it somewhere, and we could make it seem like that's really spiritual. But I'm glad for Louis Giglio and all. I've used those things. But seriously, okay. The created world doesn't have like the gospel embedded inside the stars somewhere. What the stars are saying is something like this. God is glorious, and he's huge, and he's awesome. His invisible nature, his divine attributes are clearly seen. Look at verse 4, it's a universal creation. Their message has gone to all the world, their words to the end of the earth. In the heavens he pitched a tent for the sun. It's like a groom coming from the bridal chamber. It rejoices like an athlete running a course. It rises from one end of the heavens and circles to the other. Nothing is hidden from its heat. So the creation speaks something. It says something about who God is and how great he is. It says something universally to every person everywhere. But the creation tells us, while it tells us enough to know God exists, it tells us enough to know that he's powerful. I think it even tells us enough to say that he is a sentient moral being. It does not tell us enough to have a real relationship with God. You need Jesus for that. You need, look at verse 7, the instruction of the Lord is perfect. There's a juxtaposition happening in Psalm 19 where you start with the created world, which says something, and then it flips and goes, now look at the scripture. The instruction of the Lord is perfect, renewing one's life. The testimony of the Lord is trustworthy, making the inexperienced wise. The precepts of the Lord. So there's a turn in Psalm 19 which says, as good and as important as the created world is, it's incomplete in what it says without the fullness of the revelation of Scripture. So that means what I am not advocating is you to go, I'm going to stop doing my devos and having my quiet time because Mark said I'm supposed to enjoy God by enjoying creation, and I just went on a walk in the woods and got what I needed of God from the rays of the sunlight. No, what I'm saying is it would massively help your quiet time to go for a walk in the woods and then to read about the God who made it beautiful. You follow? This is the substance. But all you're going to see God in is black and white unless you get the color of the creation to expand your horizon. Okay? Now, so we started and we said, here it is, God, he is glorious and he's awesome and he created the world and he gave it to us as a good gift. So we are to enjoy that good gift the way you would enjoy any good gift. Second point, there are 3 key qualifiers. Beware of idolatry. Remember that the curse is real and this is a broken place. And remember there's a limitation to the beauty and the glory of creation. You can know about God, but you can't know God through it. Now, here's my third point. I want to apply this though. How is it then that we honor and glorify God by enjoying the creation? Okay? Stop breaking your life into spiritual and non-spiritual categories. I'm going to give you 4 key ways. They're not all of them. They're just the thoughts I have. Okay. Boom. Right. Stop breaking your life into spiritual and non-spiritual categories. It is a false distinction and has more to do with a form of hyper-spiritual Gnosticism than biblical Christianity. That will help you to do the second point. I'm just going to say stop breaking your life into here's my spiritual time with God and here's then the rest of my day where I do whatever I want. Stop that business. Stop it. He rules over everything in your life. Everything. So there's not a set of spiritual activities and a set of non-spiritual activities. There's a set of activities inside the world that God created and where Jesus is Lord. So honor him with all of those set activities. Now we're going to have to specify how I honor him, right? Okay, so here's second thing I'm going to point out to you. Stop breaking your life in spiritual, non-spiritual categories. Second, honor God in the midst of every category of human existence, which means you need to think of Jesus as Lord over the church, over your job, over your family, over your shoes, over your closet, over everything in all of the world. So here's the way I think about that. The way I think about that is kind of like this. You can think of Jesus as, to break your life into spiritual, non-spiritual categories, you can think of him as your top priority. You ever heard, God's my number one priority. What that means is I have a number one priority, namely God, and then I have other priorities that are distinct from him, right? So God's in my number one, but then school, then family, then work. And what I'm saying is, well, does he get to come into those? So stop thinking of God as a top priority in a list. Instead, think of him as the central hub out of which everything in life radiates, so that everything originates and orients around this central idea of who God is and his lordship in your life. so that God is the center of everything. He's Lord over my work. He's Lord over my family. He's Lord over my school. He's Lord over my quiet time. He's Lord over my church. He's Lord over my parenting. Jesus is Lord of every sphere of human existence because he created everything. So don't make him the top of your priorities. Make him the center of your life. There's a distinction there. Third, honor God by authentically entering into the human experience of joy. How do you honor God in your job? I want to suggest it's not primarily just simply by doing your job so that you can get money and give it to the church, or doing your job so you can meet people who don't know Jesus so you can share your faith, or doing your job while singing a hymn or listening to Christian music because that brings God into your work. It's not that any of those things are not true. You should do that, okay? You should do a job, earn money, give it to your church. You should do a great job so that you can share Jesus with your... But what I'm saying is if God created you to do your job, you know the number one way you honor God? Do your job with joy. Like actually do your job. You know if you are a pancake flipper, the one way you're going to honor God at work? Flip pancakes. Right? Be like, oh, these pancakes all burned because I was talking to the person about Jesus. Well, then God is only Lord over the person talking about Jesus instead of the pancake griddle. He's Lord over the griddle too, you know? So you honor him by flipping the pancakes. Okay. How do you honor God as a football player? Yeah, play the game. Go into it, right? How do you honor God in activity of human existence? You enter into the activity itself. You do the thing. Okay, now, that's a really articulate way to say it, right? You do the thing. Yeah, okay, great. I wasn't thinking about that, but now I'm going to go do the thing because that's great. Okay, I'm going to read a quote to you out of C.S. Lewis's Lures. C.S. Lewis here. It's a letter to Malcolm that he titles Meditation in a Tool Shed. Okay? And I'm going to see if I can get this well. He describes in his letters to Malcolm earthly blessings like the coolness of a stream or a hot day as an exposition of the glory itself, or more provocatively, earthly pleasures are shafts of glory as it strikes our sensibility. Now I need to describe that, so I'll let Lewis do this. C.S. Lewis writes this: the beams of created glory communicate something of the eternal and divine glory. He writes this: I have tried since that moment to make every pleasure a channel of adoration. I don't mean simply by giving thanks for the pleasure. One must, of course, give thanks, but I mean something different from that. How shall I put it? We can't, or I can't, hear the song of a bird simply as a sound. Its meaning or message, that's a bird, comes with it inevitably, just as one can't see a familiar word in print as a mere visual pattern. Reading is as involuntary as the seeing. When the wind roars, I don't hear the roar, I hear wind. In the same way, it is possible to read as well as to have a pleasure, or not even as well as. The distinction ought to become, and sometimes is impossible, to receive it and to recognize its divine source or a single experience. Now listen, here's where it gets really good. The heavenly fruit is instantly redolent of the orchard where it grew. If you don't know redolent, it's going to get better. This sweet air whispers of the country from whence it blows. The wind is a message itself. We are touched by a finger of the right hand at which there are pleasures forevermore. There need be no question of thanks or praise as a separate event, something to be done afterwards, because we are experiencing the tiny theophany itself in adoring it. Gratitude exclaims properly, how good of God to give me that. We should have gratitude. Adoration says, What is the quality of a being whose far off and momentary thoughts are like this? One's mind, this is the key phrase I want you to think about. One's mind runs back up the sunbeam to the sun. Yeah, that's good. We run back up the sunbeam to the sun, which means I don't look at the sunbeam and then think, man, I should go praise God for it. I look at the sunbeam, and in seeing it, I'm seeing something that comes from the hand of God. So it is not that you need to enjoy the sunset, then go back home and sing a praise and worship song to honor God, but that to honor God, what do you do when you see a sunset? You just enjoy the sunset. Because in the sunset, you see him, because he shines in everything that's fair. So, first three things: stop breaking your life in spiritual, non-spiritual categories. Honor God in the midst of every category of existence. Honor God by authentically enjoying human existence. And then fourth, you can honor God by cultivating a taste for things that are truly beautiful and good. If he shines in everything that's fair, then a great lunch is something to be eaten to the glory of God. Right? A good burger with bacon on top makes my heart sing. And that doesn't need to be idolatry unless I have 10 burgers. You follow? Like, that's the way. I think that's the distinction, right? Right? I want to actually go, and I like listening to all sorts of music, right? I love it. But if I spend all of my life savings to go to this new show, probably I have an idol, not an expression of enjoyment, right? So you don't want to overlove something, but I'm telling you, man, if you go out for a good dinner with your girlfriend and she looks good, doggone it, God's good to you. Just enjoy the thing. Don't come up with some spiritual category for what you need to call it. Enjoy being with this beautiful girl in this wonderful place. That honors God. Okay? Now, great music is a chance to honor God. Great food is a chance to honor God. A beautiful setting is a chance to honor God. Clean water is a chance to honor God. If you start just drilling into everything you have that you can enjoy in life, and you just open yourself up to enjoy it, you can honor God all over the place. Now, what's the result of that? God is glorified because you are enjoying the gift that he gave the way that he meant you to enjoy the gift. Second, and I think this is really important, you will be refreshed and guarded against the temptation towards sin. I think one of the main reasons that porn is so tempting to people and living in a Netflix world is so tempting to people in this generation is that we have never been set free to just learn how to enjoy all that which is legitimately good. Holy cow, this world is amazing. And we're settling for a crafted pleasure that is idolatrous rather than just enjoying the thing that God gave. It would guard your heart. Okay? It would guard your heart to taste God's goodness and fill your heart so full of his glory by enjoying creation that the temptation of sin lost its power because you already had the pleasure you needed. You follow? The power of sin in the heart is the pleasure that it offers you in the moment. What happens if your heart is so pleasureful and glory-driven and joy-satisfied because you're enjoying everything that God has given? You know what happens when the temptation of sin comes up? You don't need to do it anymore because you don't need it. Learning how to enjoy God in everything is an amazingly helpful safeguard against sin. And here's the third result. You will be a normal human being. I'm not going to say this in a mean way, but Christians can be morons sometimes, guys. Holy goodness. If you have a Christian t-shirt on, I don't blame you. I got like a Salt Company t-shirt on. But we have done this weird, messed up junk where we create a Christian subculture on how to enjoy everything in life, which means we never enter into the real college life of our campus because we think the real college life of our campus is all wicked and nasty. And instead of entering in and learning how to enjoy a football game or enjoy a party or enjoy our dorm floor or enjoy our fraternity in a righteous way, we distance ourselves from the world because it's full of naughtiness. What if we learned how to have the filter of living as salt and light in the middle of the world as totally normal people who see God in everything? You know what that would let us do? Be like the biggest K-State fan in the world, the biggest KU fan in the world, a huge part of our university campus in a totally normal way because we didn't have to create a Christian version of what they have. You ever seen that? Like Christian intramurals, you know? If you're doing that, stop it. Stop it. Go join a normal intramural team and enjoy basketball with non-Christians and show them that a Christian knows how to live in the world God created. You know why? Because a lot of people, when they look at Christianity, go, I want nothing to do with that because I don't like the idea of just sitting there praying to Jesus as if he's some sort of disembodied person. And the notion that I'm going to die and I'm going to get a harp and I'm going to be in an eternal praise service is completely weird to me. You know why? Because they're humans and they weren't created to have a harp and an eternal praise service. So if we display to them the glory of the goodness of the created world and how to enjoy the Creator in that, we show them something, the beauty of our God, which makes Jesus look awesome in the world and makes you look a little more normal. And that's helpful for the sake of the gospel. So, okay, that's all I got.